let it be known that Toni Storm debuted on SmackDown 3 weeks ago. She has not appeared nor been mentioned since. And I get that they're building to SummerSlam. They have a pay-per-view now in less than a week, and she is not on the card, so the focus has to be on all of these other matches. But if that is the reason why she is not on this show, and we don't know the reason that she is not on this show. Is she hurt? Is there a personal issue? Is there a visa issue? We don't know, because she just vanished, and nobody has said a word. Logically, I'm willing to bet that it has to do with the fact that she's not on the SummerSlam card, and so we don't have television time for her right now. If that is the case, then why introduce her last month and not wait until after SummerSlam if you knew that she wasn't going to be on the SummerSlam card? Why not just wait until after the pay-per-view? Why ask why? Why do I even ask these questions, since nobody ever gives me a logical, straight answer? Why do I ask such logical questions when I know that I'm not going to get an answer? I don't know, but I'll continue to ask these questions because I can't help myself. I'm trying to apply logic to an illogical situation. Now, in this week's NXT drama update, I want to read you some passages from this week's Observer, because this is what Meltzer was reporting this week as a follow-up to all of the NXT releases and the situation as it currently stands in NXT. And it's a fucking mess. It says even though these were NXT releases, it was Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, and John Laurinaitis who decided who would be cut. Those in NXT said that not only did Paul Levesque nor Shawn Michaels have a say in the cuts, they weren't even aware of them until after Laurinaitis started calling the talent. Now think about that. You talk about Triple H being left out of the loop, right? It's his brand. It's his vision for the brand, and he's the one running the day-to-day of NXT and forming the relationships and coming up with the creative for this talent. They didn't even consult him in advance or give him a heads up that there were cuts coming or who the cuts were going to be. He's got to book television week to week. He's got a takeover special coming up. And they wouldn't even give him the courtesy of letting him know in advance, hey, we're about to cut so-and-so. You don't think there aren't people in this company that don't have it out for Triple H? Meltzer said Levesque had been thought to be untouchable, but in failing to stop AEW's rise and eventually losing the war, it gave both his detractors and those who felt he would replace them the obvious ammunition. I hear that line, and the first name that comes to mind is Kevin Dunn. We've heard about this for years. That Triple H and Stephanie, when and if the day ever came that Kevin Dunn, or not Kevin Dunn, but Vince McMahon stepped aside, if they took over in some way, Kevin Dunn would be one of the first people out the door. That they wanted him out and to replace him with somebody that they handpicked themselves. Kevin Dunn has to know that. Kevin Dunn is a Vince McMahon guy. He's worked for this company now for so many years. He's worked under the thumb of Vince McMahon. He's a Vince McMahon guy. He's not a Triple H guy. I hear something like that. Internal forces in the company who would love to just conspire almost against Triple H because they see him as a threat to their own position, and that's the first name I thought of. Because Kevin Dunn is not just the one who produces the show. He's in a very powerful position, very influential and powerful position in that company. Meltzer said the idea is that Levesque is in control and his vision for the product failed to attract younger viewers. Partially, if not largely, because of going against AEW, NXT was the oldest skewing wrestling show among the major national shows, which is true. I would read about that every week when I would look at the demos and stuff, and it was unbelievable. What was carrying NXT for so long was the 50 and over crowd. I don't know if that's still the case today, but for the longest time, it was the oldest skewing wrestling show on even more so than Raw. And the average median age of the Raw viewer has gone up as well over the years. But he says within both the television and the wrestling business, it was considered a given that with the WWE backing, it would eventually dominate Wednesday. And the opposite happened. The idea was that at NXT, originally it was set up and funded to be a developmental project, and it ended up being filled with 5'8" guys who were past the age of 30, and the mentality of Vince McMahon is that those people cannot be main roster stars. The idea is they wanted bigger people and more characters developed. One person in the company noted that the mindset is that when WWE would sign independent talent, they would first have to beat the independent out of them when it came to their style in the ring, but then when they made it to the main roster, they would have to beat the NXT out of them. This toxicity led to Karrion Kross, the NXT champion, losing twice on Raw, while NXT was building him as an unstoppable monster, having to run through the roster for a showdown with Samoa Joe. Those internally said that when Bronson Reed got his tryout match in recent weeks, Vince McMahon decided against him and felt that due to the fact that if he's not going to be on the main roster, then what is the point of keeping him? So think about that. Bronson Reed, we sit around, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who talks about this stuff on their show who has, made comments in a jokey, but not really a jokey way about whenever we hear about a call-up or a dark match before SmackDown, it's like, well, this is the beginning of the end. There's a reason. There's a reason why we talk like this. There's a reason why I make those kinds of comments. And I did the same thing when I saw that Bronson Reed was going to be getting a tryout match before SmackDown. And now we find out that he had his match and Vince McMahon took one look at the guy and said, I don't see it. And then he decided, well, if I don't see it, and we're not going to put him on TV, then what's the point of keeping him around? Meanwhile, there were people in the company who had come up with creative plans for him with the idea that he might be called up. But apparently the final call is made by the final boss, and we know who the final boss is. If Vince McMahon doesn't like you, it doesn't matter if the writers like you, it doesn't matter if, one of the other people underneath him happens to like you. If he doesn't buy in, if there's no buy-in from the boss, then you're done. You're toast. You're finished. And just like that, Bronson Reed's career in WWE came to an end. And it was the same mentality, he says, with people like Mercedes Martinez and other people. If these people are not people we're going to call up to the main roster, then why are they here in the first place? Let's just get rid of them all. Meanwhile, I mentioned the Karrion Kross thing, right? And how this toxicity behind the scenes kind of bled over into what we saw with him on television. Well, Dakota Kai, at the beginning of NXT this week, had a match against Saray, who was subbing for Ember Moon, who is said to be out with an injury that I believe is a minor injury. I don't think it's anything that's going to keep her out for too long. But they slotted her in Ember Moon's place, and Dakota Kai beat her. That's Saray's first loss since she debuted. But Dakota Kai is the one who's going to be challenging Raquel Gonzalez next weekend for the title, so no problem. But Dakota Kai had a dark match, not even a dark match. It aired on Main Event. They brought her in to tape a main event match last week against Aaliyah. And Dakota Kai comes, and I watched it. I watched the match, I watched the entrance. Dakota Kai comes out, and she is playing the role of smiling babyface, which is the opposite of the role that she's playing at this very moment on NXT television, which, by the way, airs on USA Network every week. This is not a show that is being hidden away on Peacock. This is a 2-hour USA Network show that airs on the same network that airs Monday Night Raw. People watch this show. And here on Main Event, she comes out playing a totally different character. And not only that, but she lost. She lost to Aaliyah, who I would be shocked to find out has won more than 5 matches in the 6 years that she has been with NXT. Not only did they switch her from heel to babyface and beat her, before she challenges for the women's title next Sunday, she lost to one of the worst looking DDTs that I have ever seen in my life. So when I say that the higher-ups in this company have no respect for NXT, for the audience that watches NXT, I will point you to shit like this. And this is only one example of it.